All right, let's jump right in. Today we're telling the story of a really unique primate, one that's in a serious fight for survival on one of the most crowded islands on the entire planet. We are heading to Indonesia to get to know the Javan Surili.
So first off, just take a look at this beautiful animal. It's called the Javan Surili, but you might also hear it called the grizzled langur. And that name, grizzled, really tells you everything you need to know about its most striking feature, that amazing silver-tipped coat of fur that makes it look so, well, so wise.
Okay, so scientifically, we're talking about Presbytis comata. It's an old-world monkey. But the word on this slide that is absolutely crucial is endemic. That means you can't find this primate anywhere else in the world. Not in a zoo, not in another country. Only on the island of Java.
Now here's where the story gets even more fascinating, because this isn't just one monkey with one look. Nope. This single species actually comes in two very distinct forms, two different subspecies.
And wow, you can really see the difference side by side. On the left, that's your classic gray-backed comata subspecies, which you'll find in West Java. But then look to the right. That's the Frederike subspecies from Central Java, so much darker, almost black. It's the same species, but their look is totally tied to where on the island they call home.
Let's break this down a little more. You've got Kamasata in the west, with its gray back and white underside. Then you have Frederike in the central part of the island, darker, blackish body, but it shares that same white belly. And get this, even the local names are different. In the west, they call it Surili, but in the central region, it's known as Rekikon.
This whole idea of geographical separation, well, it brings us to the next really critical point. The Surili's home isn't some huge continuous rainforest. It's actually more like a bunch of isolated little islands of trees surrounded by a sea of human development.
And this map, wow, it just paints such a clear picture of the problem, doesn't it? You can see their range isn't a solid block of color. It's just these scattered dots and fragments. That means these little populations of monkeys are totally cut off from each other. They can't easily mix, they can't breed, and that's a huge issue for their survival.
They are literally clinging to life in these specific strongholds. We're talking about protected areas, national parks, and remote mountain forests. Places like Ujung Kulon and Mount Halimun Salak, way out in the west, all the way over to Mount Slamet and the Dieng Mountains in central Java. These are their last little fortresses. So, what does all this isolation and fragmentation mean? Well, it leads us straight to the heart of the crisis, the numbers. And honestly, they're pretty terrifying.
Let's start with the official word. This is from the IUCN, the global authority on this stuff. They've listed the Javan Surili as endangered. Why? Because they estimate there are fewer than 2,500 mature adults left in the wild. And the most chilling part of that sentence is the last three words, in continuing decline. It's still getting worse. And it gets worse. Within that official estimate, the IUCN says the actual number could be as low as about 1,400. Just let that sink in for a second. For an entire species across its whole home range, that number is devastatingly small.
You know, it's easy to hear a number like 1,400 and have it not quite register. But these aren't just abstract figures. Researchers have been on the ground watching this happen in real time, and the stories they tell are heartbreaking.
Take a look at this. This is a case study from one nature reserve. In about 1990, you'd find around 35 Surilis for every square kilometer. Just 12 years later, that number had dropped to 3.5. That's a 90% collapse. They basically vanished from that forest. And that's not just a one-off story. Over in central Java on Mount Slamet, it's tragically similar. In 2007, researchers estimated there were about 219 of them on the southern slope. By 2021, that number was down to 72. Two-thirds of the population, just gone, in 14 years. This is what extinction looks like up close.
So after seeing numbers like that, you have to ask, why? What on earth is pushing this beautiful primate right to the very edge?
It really all boils down to one single shocking number, 96%. That is the amount of the Javan Surili's original historic habitat that has been completely, totally wiped off the map.
I mean, try to put that into perspective. Their world used to cover over 43,000 square kilometers, a massive area. Today, it's been squeezed down to just 1,600. It is an almost total demolition of their home, and it's the root cause of this whole crisis.
So what does that look like on the ground? Well, you've got the obvious one, deforestation, right? Cutting down forests for timber, building materials, firewood. Then you've got the fragmentation we talked about, which isolates these populations.
And on top of all that, they face direct threats. They're sometimes hunted as pests or even for food, and they get accidentally caught in snares that were set for other animals.
So what you end up with is a species that used to live in these vast lowland forests now being literally pushed up into the mountains, squeezed into these tiny leftover patches of habitat, and its entire future is hanging by the thinnest of threads.
And this story, the story of the Javan Surili, it really becomes a symbol for a much bigger struggle that's happening all over the world. And it leaves us with this final, incredibly difficult question. On an island with 150 million people, what kind of future is there for a shy, forest-dwelling monkey that has nowhere else in the world to go?